Sports. I'm with Luis Monda at the Johnny Toco's gym, very historic gym. My first time being here. How you doing?
Good, very good, thank you.
First of all, great to meet you. You've been jobbing a lot of boxing, a lot of factoids I didn't know.
It's my thing, it's what I do.
First of all, for the people out there who don't know you, tell them a little about yourself, your background in boxing at this gym.
Well, I moved here from Miami about 10 years ago, 2006. You know, big dreams of going pro, you know, doing the whole career thing. I trained at top rank under Mike McCallum for a few years. I started with Richie Sandoval, former bantamweight champion. Then I was with Mike McCallum for almost 5 years. I did a lot of sparring, you know, I did a lot of sparring for pros. I was a southpaw, and I was like I am a southpaw. I was one of the only southpaws around at the time. So anytime anybody needed a southpaw, I was the guy that was always at the gym. I got to pick Mike's brain. You know, Mike McCallum was trained by Eddie Futch, Emmanuel Stewart, and George Benton. So, and his first trainer was Cuban. Like, I never knew that in Jamaica, he was taught by a Cuban. I'm Cuban, and I have a lot of respect for the Cuban amateur system. So to find out that he was developed by those same principles, like I said, I got to just get in the man's head for that many years. My own career didn't really go anywhere. I ended up managing the gym. And in managing the gym, eventually I got asked to train a couple people. But before I decided to do that, I spent 2 years just following the trainers around. You know, I was a bucket man for like 2 years, going to every amateur show, getting experience, looking and learning. I didn't really even say anything in the corners half the time unless they pointed to me and said, "You have something to add?" Cornering guys in the gym, you know, just basically working on my own identity. And then I finally agreed to train people myself, and like my first 4 amateur fighters won their first combined 8 fights in a row. Then we started getting robbed. So that's basically, you know, in short, that's the history of it.
Wow, that's a pretty good history. And you know, you talked about George Benton and Futch and all those guys. You know, you're kind of connected to that knowledge.
Yeah.
And you broke down something interesting earlier. I kind of want you again. You breaking down the Philly shell and the difference between the Philly shell and just like how you certain fighters catch shots. And
in Detroit, Michigan, and Grand Rapids and other parts of Michigan, if you go to boxing gyms in the inner city and say you want to learn how to fight, they'll be like, "All right, well, first you take your left hand and put it down like this, then you take your right hand, put it up like this. If somebody throws a jab, you catch it with your shoulder or your hand. Somebody throws a hook, you catch it with the hand." You know what I mean? So like, that's just how they fight. That's just what they teach. The crouching crab was a style originated by Tommy Ryan. He was a bare knuckle champion who was the trainer of Jim Jeffries. He gave it to Jim Jeffries, and Jim Jeffries, of course, won the world heavyweight title with it. There's very little footage of Jim Jeffries around fighting. His sparring footage is very erratic, so it's hard to see. But there are some still photos where you'll catch him in this position. And he crouched a lot. He was a tall guy, but he crouched low, and he tended to step sideways and defend himself as if he was in a shell. So that's they call it the crouching crab. It evolved into the Michigan crab style that you see now. And when I first started talking to Floyd Mayweather Sr., that's what he referred to it as. He would always say crab. Now, Eddie Futch ended up training Georgie Benton. But I've heard from other people that Benton actually learned the beginning of his style from another trainer. And Futch just kind of helped him refine it. But Futch himself was a sparring partner for Joe Louis in that Michigan area. And he also fought lead hand low. So the Philly fighters, they take a similar beginning position, but they're much more aggressive. They go forward and they do a lot more rolling, you know, overhand, more circular punches, you know, cutting up underneath with uppercuts. So they move their heads and waists to not get hit a lot, whereas the Michigan fighters are more upright and do a lot more turning and deflecting with the shoulders and hands.
That would explain why, like guys like you see guys like James Toney, Floyd Mayweather, guys are great counterpunchers because they're more upright and they're not doing as much ducking and dipping as the Philly guys. Right.
Whereas the Philly guys, like I've mentioned, Benny Briscoe, Joe Frazier, even Georgie Benton. Like you'll see a lot of defensive footage on Georgie Benton, but he was a largely offensive fighter once he got going. He often said that was the problem in the fight with Hurricane Carter. He said it was his first time fighting in Madison Square Garden. he was very nervous and he wanted to put on a show, so he attacked Carter a lot more than he normally would, and didn't use his boxing ability to the best of his ability. He ended up in too much of a war with him.
Yeah, it took its toll over time.
Right.
Yeah. You also talked about, we were talking about this earlier, because we had kind of the same perspective. I believe that Roman Gonzalez is the best fighter in boxing. I've heard you say that as well.
Yeah.
Why do you feel Roman Gonzalez deserves the title as the pound-for-pound best fighter in all boxing?
Right this second, he's done the most in terms of he's conquered 3 divisions, if not 4. I think he's on his 4th now. And the division he started in, 108, or either 105 or 108, I don't remember. But he knocked out the champion of that division. Then he moved up and knocked out that champion. Then he moved up and knocked out that champion too. Every time you move up a division and win, people consider it a big deal. But he's not just doing that. He was moving up and winning by stoppage. The only other monster in the small divisions was Estrada, and he already beat him. You know what I'm saying? So, like, how do you already have a victory over the guy that everyone now are starting to say, oh, he's a killer, and Roman's like, yeah, I beat him 2 years ago. You know what I mean? He recently had a tough fight. I do think that moving up is starting to catch up to him a little bit, but there's also been a trend lately, a weird trend of people saying they're not that impressed by him because they heard he's been knocking people out a lot. But then he fought that kid, McWilliams Arroyo.
Yep, the Olympian.
Arroyo has a lot of knockouts on his record, and yeah, Roman didn't stop him. But Arroyo, I don't think he won 1 round of that fight.
Every round. 11
so,
rounds, 12 rounds.
A complete shutout against an Olympian who's known as a knockout artist, and people are like, no, I wasn't impressed. Like, well, what the hell does it take to impress you?
He didn't have to go up and beat Anthony Joshua.
Right, by knockout.
By knockout.
So I just think he's done the most. If you compare his career to anybody else's who's undefeated or who's at the top, they've not done what he's done. They've not moved up. They've not conquered 3 divisions by stoppage. And then I've argued with people on this side of the ocean who keep saying, yeah, but I don't know anybody who's fought. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't hold that against him. Yeah, like, just because you don't know who's in the lighter divisions. I mean, he's fought a lot of really, really good fighters. Just because you don't know who they are doesn't mean they're not any good.
Exactly. I'm glad we're getting like someone like yourself who's obviously been in the boxing game for many, many years, longer than I've been born, and alive. And then I say things like that. People are like, oh, well, you're a fanboy.
Right.
You say things like that. You obviously been in the game. You've been in the gym. You're in the gym.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said. It's about what they do, how they do it, and who they do it against. Like he's got the best. There's very few questionable wins, if any, on his resume. He's knocked out world level fighters. He won by stoppage, and he's on his 4th division already. That's enough for me.
Yeah. You brought up something earlier that I kind of wanted to touch on about like how with the Gennady Golovkin and the fear factor thing.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that?
Yeah. I just think that there's a distinct culture in boxing of if something gets whispered somewhere and then it spreads like wildfire, like again, I made the comparison earlier between Canelo and Golovkin. And some people have said this, it's my agreement. I'm sure a few people are gonna dislike the video over this, or talk or say stuff in the comments about how I'm an idiot, don't know what I'm talking about, but they're doing the same thing. They're taking money fights or stay busy fights against smaller guys half the time. Golovkin has more middleweights on his resume, sure, but not any that are a distinct danger. And like Erislan de Lara's been calling him out for 2 years. How come that fight hasn't happened? You know what I'm saying? Because Lara will make it ugly. We know why. He'll make Canelo ugly, he'll make Golovkin ugly. So they don't want to do that. That's understandable, but don't say no one wants to fight you if people are calling you out and you're not fighting them. You see what I'm saying? So they're taking fights they know they're going to win, big name fights, and on one side of the coin you got a guy getting called a coward for doing it, and then on the other side of the coin you have a guy, people are saying that he's such a badass that only little guys are willing to step in the ring with him, which that doesn't really make any sense. Like, how brave is Kell Brook really? You know what I mean? That much braver than everyone else in boxing? Or did they want that particular fight because it got a bigger name?
Huge money fight.
Right. So to me, it's all about calling business business, and not being delusional about what you're seeing. Like right now, everybody's talking about this Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather.
Oh God.
It's a circus fight,
Money,
you know.
yeah.
It's entertainment. It's money. That's what we do. It shouldn't be sold as a legitimate fight, but that's the way they're gonna sell it. But you're gonna have people online and around, you know, fans of the sport of boxing so upset and so livid that it's happening. And I'm like, look, man, Floyd's been retired for what, 3 years now? You know, Conor doesn't want to do UFC for the rest of his life. He already doesn't get along with the management that good. He's gonna make enough money from this to not have to fight. If that's what he's gonna do and that's what they're gonna do, as long as we're realistic about what it is, I don't see a problem with it. But if people are gonna call it something it's not, that's when I start to have a problem with it. People refer to certain fighters as cowards. You know, like I've heard people call Floyd Mayweather Jr. a coward. How can you call a man who's done nothing other than fight with his fists for money for his entire adult life a coward? You know what I mean? If he retired and went to go punch a clock, if he retired after his first hard fight and went to go punch a clock, sit at a desk, type on a computer, then you could call him a coward. But to say that Canelo's a pussy or Golovkin is so invincible that no one will fight him. If no one will fight him, how's he still getting fights? You know what I mean? If no one would fight him, he'd be inactive for a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's
getting fights because there are people who will fight him. And if there's a 154-pounder who will fight him, there's a 168-pounder who will fight him. How come he didn't go to 168? You know, Ward posed that question. He's like, you're such a badass, nobody will fight you at 160. Well, come up where I'm at and fight me for my title. They were like, nah, we're good.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would say the Ward thing. They would say like, because apparently Ward's teammate offered the Golovkin after the Levy fight was already signed. And they would say like, well,
that doesn't matter. People make in this business, people make deals. And Baldomir. Okay, so Floyd Mayweather Jr. was supposed to fight Zab Judah. Zab Judah lost to Carlos Baldomir. The IBF stripped Baldomir of the belt, gave it back to Judah, and Floyd fought Judah anyway. Do you know why Floyd fought Judah instead of going straight to Baldomir? Because the deal was already signed. It was already inked. If he would have backed out of it, he would have been in breach of contract. Zab could have sued him. So he fought Zab anyway for a bullshit belt and then turned around and went right after Baldomir, the guy who won the titles. But a lot of people at the time were so upset that the Judah fight was taking place at all. They were like, he just lost. Why is he fighting him? Because it was already contractually obligated. That's why. These people make deals all the time. When it got announced that Golovkin and Canelo signed to fight September of this year, we heard about that here a year before that announcement was made to the media. So we get the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight, the fight that was never supposed to happen. Never supposed to happen. Every Pacquiao fan. I had one of our pros here agreed to be a sparring partner at least 4 months before the news hit the media that they signed the fight. Because I know people in Mayweather's camp, and I said, I heard a whisper, and I went to the guy and said, hey, is it true he's definitely fighting Manny? They said, he's definitely fighting Manny. I said, well, I got a guy to work as a sparring partner for him. They said, send him down. They wouldn't have said that shit if it was still even questionable. You know what I mean? So most of the times, when you guys in the media get wind that maybe these two guys are fighting, it's already done. It's already done. You know,
like, breaking that down.
Right.
As far as boxing and some of the upcoming fights, is there anything you're like excited to see? Any matchups?
Not particularly. I mean, I want to see Golovkin Canelo. Marquez and Cotto. It's pretty much a done deal. Yeah, for two guys at the end of their career, it's really going to be a fun fight because of their vulnerabilities now. You know, it's going to be more of a firecracker fight than I think it would have been in the beginning. I'm interested to see what happens with the heavyweight division. You know, now that you got Wilder up there, you got Anthony Joshua up there, Klitschko's still in the mix, still wants his belt back. The heavyweight division's finally starting to look interesting. And there's other heavyweights coming up that are actually pretty good. Yeah. And the one nobody's talking about, King Kong. Luis Ortiz. I think he could knock out all three of them probably in the same night.
I think he's the most skilled heavyweight in the world.
Right. So, you know, there's a guy right there who could complain about not getting big fights.
Being done.
Right. Because nobody's even saying his name. Like, nobody's even, they're like, Luis who? I don't know.
Did you see his last fight by any chance? He fought a guy named David Allen, the White Rhino.
No, I didn't see that.
If you ever get a chance to watch it, he can complain because that was a pretty bad fight.
Right.
The opponent they had to result to as a byproduct of like
because he's not in on anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you know, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I don't get a chance to watch as much boxing as I'd like because you know I'm in boxing up to my forehead all week long, and I have 2 small children, so when I go home, it's really about them. But there's a lot of good stuff going on. Like I'm not one of these people who people don't understand the way the business of boxing works. They don't understand stay busy fights. They don't understand showcase fights. They think that 24 hours a day, every champion is supposed to fight each other. Well, if we did that right now, then within like 6 months, every champion would be gone. You know what I mean? Like, right, yeah. So when these guys take stay busy fights or showcase fights, I understand that for what it is. You know, like it's just them continuing to make money. It was no different in the 80s. You know, in the 80s, you could turn on Wild World of Sports on a Sunday morning and watch Gennady Golovkin kick the crap out of some guy you've never heard of. You know, just to stay busy, they would make a fight like that. So it's not different now, but now that you have so much internet and people have access to everything, everybody's an expert.
Yeah, they are. Any message to the boxing world?
No, you know, just keep your eyes and ears open. Don't believe what you see on TV. Floyd's not a jerk. You know what I mean? Like, you meet people in person. It doesn't often go like you think.
True. It's very true.
Right. Just be cool with fighters. You know, don't be that guy who's calling Canelo a pussy, and then when you see him, you want his autograph.
Yeah.
You know, don't be that guy because we hate that. You know, if you're gonna give him shit online, have the balls to give him shit in person at the very least. If you're not that dude, and you know that if you saw them, you'd actually be nice to them because you don't want to get beat up, then just, you know, don't say such crazy shit. I mean, fans are fans. They're gonna do what they want, but that's all I would ask of them is to just understand that this is a sport like any other sport. You know, and when a guy loses, don't start talking about how much he sucks. You know, there's no such thing as completely flawless anything. You know, that same guy will be wearing a Cleveland Browns jacket. You know what I mean? And how you call one guy a bum, you know, or you're wearing a Mets jersey, you know what I'm saying? You're wearing a Mets hat, you know, like you stick by sports teams who it's like a self-torture thing just to be a fan of them. But if a fighter loses one fight by questionable decision, you run around talking about how much he sucks.
That's interesting because, like, you know, speaking as a long-time suffering Charlotte Hornets fan, I know about self-torment. So
exactly.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Luis. I appreciate you talking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.